Let's talk about Child's Play 3, which, in the order of the Child's Play Chucky films, I'd say that this is the first one that I feel like is not as good as the first two. And it's not the worst sequel, but it's my second least favorite out of the whole franchise. And I feel like you know what my least favorite is, even though I do not mind that movie, but this is my second to least favorite Child's Play movie. And for me, this is the one that, a little bit of backstory. Like, Don Mancini was wrote Child's Play 2 in 1990. Then 9 months later, they were on the bandwagon again and making Child's Play 3. So I feel like it's not their fault. It's just the studio, Universal, wanted to just churn out a sequel incredibly quick. Like, 9 months between sequels is crazy. That to me is kind of insane. And it could have almost been in the same year as the second one. And I don't know how much money the second one made. I guess it made a good amount because they were immediately, like, on the jump to make another one immediately. And that kind of put it in, I don't know about, like, development hell, but it made it to where Bride of Chucky was not even thought of until, like, 8 years later. 7 or 8 years later, which I think is funny because this one, while not being bad, was definitely less memorable than the first two, because this one, like I said, in terms of the writing, the writing's fine, but it's just a story that didn't have. It feels like the same movie again after the first two, and I think the second one perfected it. Out of these first three Child's Play movies that are the same story basically, about Chucky chasing Andy or Tyler, in this case, in this movie. Anyways, it's him chasing a kid in each one of these first three. And in this one, it just felt like it was the exact same thing as the other two, but more overkill, and it didn't seem like Don Mancini really had his heart in it, in which it just felt like the story was kind of just same old, except the difference is that it's 8 years later, and it's got Andy as a 16-year-old who goes to military school because he's been abandoned out of all these foster homes, can't make it through any of them. And then Chucky is reanimated by the toy factory again, like the second one. But the thing that I think is funny, and it's really weird, that you go from 2 to 3, and in 2 at the very end, whenever Kyle and Andy blow up Chucky's head, it's 8 years later, and they literally have waited that long and shut down the company because of this weird mishap. I mean, I know it's an odd thing, like, who would have, like, actually, I don't even think it's that odd. To me, like, if you look at this situation from people who don't know that Chucky's alive in the second one, you could think that this doll just, his head blew up. Why was it completely, like, the company was completely under, like, the factory was gone for 8 years, just rotting in dust? That is weird that they did that. And that's one of the couple little writing things that I'm just like, oh, that's kind of cheap. But I don't blame Don Mancini. I just think that it's like, how do you make a movie that quickly, make it seem really plausible from the last one, even though this franchise is not about plausibility. It's not about something that it makes sense really at all. They play by the rules in different films in different ways, despite being written by the same person every time, which is fine. It livens it up, but I just thought it was funny that you have 8 years behind the second one, and the factory was just shut down because of a mishap of a doll's head blowing up. And I guess there was blood everywhere, but, like, did they think it was the doll's blood? Like, they just thought it was a weird mishap? I don't understand. And they don't explain it, don't go into it. They don't mention Kyle, which was a great replacement for Karen in the second one, who Kyle was awesome. I'd love to see her again in a Child's Play film. And they don't even mention her in this movie. That sucks. The only thing they get close to is how Andy says to the guy whenever he comes to the military school, like, he says that I was kicked out of foster homes because I didn't like anybody. They all just felt like strangers. And I know for a fact that he didn't think that of Kyle, but maybe he just made that excuse up just because he was torn away from her, maybe, presumably. We don't know still. Even with all these movies, we don't know if they got torn apart, like, or if they literally she was too young to like adopt him or whatever. So it was just weird that she was just out of the picture again. It's just like how the mom was in the first one. It's like you keep getting rid of all these people, but this time, like, I liked Kristen De Silva, but she wasn't like my out of the three. She definitely is the least of the three, even though she's a fine like love interest, and this is actually a love interest as opposed to like a mom or a foster sister watching after Andy. And I thought that she was fine. Para Reeves was fine in the role, but like it wasn't. Again, it's just the same thing again. It doesn't seem like the movie is anything super different. Besides, like I said, Andy being 16 in military school, but Chucky goes there, causes rampage, just like he did in the last two. And then instead of getting Andy, he's getting Tyler, this kid who Chucky thinks since he's got a new body, he can tell his new secret to, which we never really understand if it actually comes to fruition. If he could actually transfer his soul into Tyler, because he told it to Andy, but he made the excuse of, oh, it's a new body, so I can transfer in, or I could tell somebody else my secret. Which, I wonder if that would have actually worked. I just thought that was strange that, like, again, the writing, it's like, it's not like I blame Don Mancini, it's just I think that what new can you do in 9 months and quickly churn out a sequel? Like, it sucks that, like, it had things like that, which I don't blame him for. I just think that it was a rushed movie, so it makes sense that it's got some weird little things like that, weird little quirks that don't make that much sense, to me at least. But I thought that it was just pretty much the same movie. I did like the military stuff. To me, was kind of all right, kind of boring. It wasn't anything like great like the first two. But whenever it gets to the third act is really cool, because what they do is Andy, Kristen, and Tyler separate from all the groups who are having a paintball war, and then Chucky replaces them with live rounds, like replaces paintball bullets with live rounds, which can't do that, but that made it funny too. But a couple people die from the actual gunshots, and then Andy and Kristen go and try to save Tyler, who Chucky has taken down to this carnival, which is a cool, different location from the rest of the movie. You wouldn't expect just going into it that it would end there, but I liked it. I liked that ending. I thought that was a really cool ending, and it was a cool place, just like how in the second one it was the toy factory, and this one it's in a carnival. Like, I think that is a cool idea, and I wish the movie was more of that, because for the most part it was boring military stuff with some okay things about it, but it just felt like it was playing by the numbers from the first two. Just Chucky's alive again. Nobody believes Andy. He's trying to get Tyler. Chucky kills people, causes rampage, and that's it until the third act. And the third act is, I guess, like the second movie too, but like it's cool having a different location. And I guess this movie does make sense in having different locations. It does have different things about it, but it's the same too. It's the same movie as the other ones with different locations, which I like and dislike, because, like I said, the military plot I just don't care much for. I just think it's kind of boring. And I can understand the idea that this Andy kid is 16 now, going into a military school where he wouldn't be like with the story he's told and is trying to hide, but then of course they've got like papers saying like, oh, he said this was a kid, like he blamed the murders on a doll. And I like the idea of him being there and like being an adult in military school now, as opposed to him being a kid in the first two, and having a different kid, Tyler, being chased by Chucky to be possessed. But like I said, it's the same kind of thing. It's just not any different, but it is different. If you understand what I'm saying, I feel like I'm just rambling and saying weird things now, but I feel like it makes sense, but it doesn't, because it's the same, but it's not. You get what I mean? I hope you do. But the movie itself, like, I think, like I said, the first two acts are alright. They're just kind of boring. The third act in the carnival is really cool. Really cool way to end Chucky for like 7 years until Bride of Chucky came out. And if I was born then and was at an age to watch this movie, I would have been fine with the ending. Like, that would have been a fine ending. even though we get some great Chucky movies after this, and one alright one, but I think that this one had a very, very solid ending. Out of the whole movie, I feel like the ending is the most solid because it is a cool location. It's a cool way to end Chucky. It was just a cool final confrontation between him and Andy for now, for a long time. And I think that that was a really cool way of just ending the movie and ending it as a trilogy. Like, it felt like it was actually complete in a way, where Chucky, even though he does come back in Bride of Chucky, he gets cut into pieces by a fan. And that was a great death of his. Like, I thought that was really cool because it felt like it was the end for him. Like, there wouldn't be any more movies. And people probably believed that for 7 years until The Bride of Chucky came out because they didn't have any sequels. So, I thought that the ending was really great. That really bumps the movie up for me. Even though it is the same kind of movie, but it's different locations and an older Andy and a different kid he's pursuing, it's pretty much the same story. Which is fine. It's definitely my second to least favorite out of all of them. But it's definitely watchable. It's definitely a watchable movie. I can watch it a lot still. I just kind of zone out during like the first 2 acts, but the third act, I am there like the whole time. It is just so good. So overall, this one, like I said, second to least favorite. Not the worst. Even the worst isn't like a terrible one, but to me, this is my second to least favorite, and it's not one that I just thought was as awesome as the first two, and a lot of others I will mention, but overall, just, it's an alright sequel. It's got a lot of good watchability to it, and a great third act.